All right. Uh, Hello, you hear me? Right, very good. Hello, my name is Kaidi Ruusalepp, and I am the founder and CEO of Funderbeam. So we will talk about the borderless world on the blockchain because it is a very important technology in the financial industry. But before I start, how many of you daily work for the financial sector? All right, all of you. And how many of you are the lawyers? None, really? Okay, because I later explain why I always ask about the lawyers. Before we go to the stock exchange thing and the blockchain thing, there's some trends I'd like to share with you, and these are the reasons why the blockchain is actually becoming essential in the next generation solutions we provide. The first big trend and the mega trend is that people started to living in value-based communities. We tend to select the communities which share the same values what we do. That's the very interesting start in Silicon Valley, for example, because Silicon Valley in US is nothing but a value-based community. If you start thinking of Copenhagen, then Copenhagen as a city also is becoming the value-based communities. And nowadays, when we travel so much and it's easy to move from country to country, then living in the value-based communities, working in the value-based communities is something that is going to drive the way we live. And the companies, actually, and the big corporations and startups and whatever, are also attracting customers because of the values that we share. So also enterprises and financial sector companies are also in the future going to be the value-based communities. The second is the power of the crowd. And I'm very happy, actually, that Lasse and Thomas spoke before me, because they are the very good example also what power is there in the crowd. There's good example and the bad example of the power of the crowd, because Lasse and Thomas both represent the excellent power of the crowd. But the power of the crowd also can be Brexit and Trump. But it doesn't matter what the outcome is. There is the power of the crowd, and it's us, actually, the service providers or the whatever politicians, to determine why do we use the crowd. But it's very easy to access the crowd, and we can manipulate the crowd either this way or that way. There's one thing in Estonia. We have a community in the Facebook which believes that the earth is flat. Also the power of the crowd. It can be insane, but we can't stop it. So there is the power in the future. Borderless world. We're gonna live across the borders. We already live across the borders. And the more you think about it, and the more you think about either your kids or the way the youngsters nowadays live or the startups live, is that for us there's no borders. We can go and set up the company in any country we like. We can start taking online courses from any country we would like. In Estonia, we introduced e-residency, which means that any citizen in everywhere in the world can become the e-resident of Estonia. So again, there's not this kind of borders as we know it by now in the future. So we will start living borderless life. There's two realities, and already there are two realities now. One is the reality, what we see and we feel. We can touch here, we step the ground, we take the kids to the kindergarten, we eat. This is the physical presence. The other reality is the e-reality. Using the e-services, setting up online, talking to people online. And those actually two realities are going to be the new norm. We have the physical exploitation of the land, and then we have the e-exploitation of the e-services. And why I always ask, is there a lawyer in the audience? Because the lawyers are going to be the link between the physical presence in physical land and all the services. Like the ICOs are the future way of raising the funds. But if you're a lawyer, it's up to you to set the link between the physical world and the e-services. So I think the lawyers are going to sort of set the way we're going to live in the e-world. And they're going to be extremely rich because they are the ones who translate those two worlds. So blockchain, why we think and why we see more and more blockchain solutions coming. Here's the data analytics and some graphs from Funderbeam data analytics platform. We took out all the industries where blockchain companies are working or establishing new solutions. And you see that financial services is by far leading industry on the blockchain and cryptocurrency worlds. And second is business and industry, and rest is coming. And why blockchain? Is because blockchain is a wonderful solution for trust. How many of you actually know what the blockchain is? One, some, okay. Then sometimes when people ask about me about the blockchain, then I normally say that, okay, how many of you understand how the internet technology works? Some hands. I say, okay, but do you understand why we need the internet? We need it because it's the perfect technology to exchange the data and to exchange the information. So there's just the technology, and we as service providers build solutions on top of the technology which is aimed to exchange the information and data. Now the blockchain is the technology above it, and the blockchain is the technology that enables us to exchange the assets and values. Because the technology is built in a way that instead of institutions, the technology is the trust carrier and the trust provider. So all those institutions and all of you who work for the institutions, which main aim is to provide the trust, you're going to be in trouble. Because in the future, we're going to start more and more and more trusting the technology. And more the technology will start providing us not just the trust, but something that we can rely on registering any kind of assets and transacting those assets. And now when you think about all the mega trends I mentioned at the beginning, the way we start living across the borders, then this blockchain technology starts to have total meaning and total sense, because there's somebody who is providing trust across the borders. And this is why and how we built the Funderbeam. So what is Funderbeam? Funderbeam is a startup stock exchange that we built on the blockchain technology. People ask, okay, do you only trade the startups? Right now, yes, we help startups to raise the funds wherever they are in the world. Investors invest in the companies, and investors can trade with the investments. And we built everything on the blockchain technology. But we grow with the companies, and our aim is to cover the SME market as well. Because here are the other set of the trends. I should add the ICOs, but we sent out the materials before I could add the ICOs. But as Thomas was speaking at the beginning, you could see all the list of the ICOs. So the fact is that companies don't go and raise funds on the stock markets anymore, because there's so much crowd enabled funds and private funds that you could get with less efforts, with less costs, with less managing being listed or managing the funds. So you can see that eBay, Amazon, Google, they raised less than 7 million before they became listed. Now 10 years later, Facebook who went public, they raised 2.4 billion before going public. So it's not the aim of the companies to go and list for getting access to the growth capital, because crowdfunding market is there, ICOs are there, VCs, private equity, even pension funds don't invest through stock exchanges anymore, they go directly to the VCs. So these are just the trends we can't ignore, and plus all those crazy numbers of the ICOs, like raising 20 million in 30 seconds. And the stock market, you can see that there's the decline in the number of the companies listed. And I just came back from the tour in Singapore, Sydney, New Zealand. I saw all the stock markets in all those markets, and it is the sad story in all around the world that stock markets now and stock exchanges look around for what to do next, because companies just, as the trend show, and we always talk with open cards, and everybody admits that yes, this is the case. Because if you're the company and if you need funds for the growing your company, then of course there's always the what you give, what you get. And if you go to the VC or you do the ICO and they write the check of 10 million without all those burdens normally you have to go through of going listed or being listed, then you just don't do it. So we think that IPOs are sort of so 90s or so 2015. And we built the Funderbeam, which is like the Bloomberg, Nasdaq, and Angel lists had a baby. Because nowadays the technology is so powerful that it doesn't make sense to have the trading screen and the data analytics screen. Or you can raise the funds in trading the same time. So that's why what Funderbeam did is that we built the analytics to understand the startup market of investing and trading. Now, these two next ones are the slides which sort of going to be soon my trademarks. I always show it, but it's very easy simplification of the impact of the blockchain. If you think about the way how companies are funded and trading in the stock market, then here's the investor who has the funds, and there's the company who is in the need of the funds. And to get the money from the capital markets or from the stock market, then you first need to go to the bank and have a bank account. Then need to go to the broker, which is normally a local broker, normally Finnish broker if you want to trade in Nasdaq Finland, or if you want to trade in Sydney Stock Exchange, you need to have a Sydney-based broker, or at least somebody who has a link with the stock market. So with this kind of local intermediaries providing the trust, that's why the stock markets nowadays are very local, because they are based on the local, they provide the service for the local stock exchange operator, and they have trading hours. And trading hours, because all those banks and brokers and clearing and settlement and depositories, they have working hours. So you have to be able to trade and clear and settle within the working hours of, let's say, here in Finland. And when you want to trade in US, you have to be awake quite late to trade in US. We have the technology. Why? Does it make sense? You all have smartphones. Why can't we trade online? I always compare it sort of in a way that imagine that Facebook would be open from 9 to 5 p.m. in US time, or Google search engine, because somebody is helping you to go through the Google search engine. So technology has developed so fast that the way we live it so far, it doesn't make sense. And this is what the blockchain does for the stock exchange industry. Once you properly use it, and once the blockchain actually has the capacity it's needed, then we don't need this kind of intermediaries anymore. Because once you issue the securities on the blockchain, you can trade and clear and settle everything in the blockchain. You don't need these intermediaries to say that, okay, now my shares belong to you and now your funds are transferred to me. um, our our benefit is to be a startup. We had nothing to lose when we started to build it. So we built it. We had nothing to lose to use the blockchain technology. And Funderbeam has now up and running for less than a year. The companies are funded, companies are trading in the markets. We have investors from 85 countries in the platform, and we are expanding. So this means that all kind of our assumptions and all our understandings of the trends and of the technology, it is there. This is the trading screen in Funderbeam platform. This is normally what the professional brokers see. In our case, you can see it because there's no this kind of limitations of the physical room anymore. If you think of how the exchanges are built and how quite many banking systems are built, it's more than 100 years ago, maybe 150 years ago, and it all started with a limited capacity of the trading floor. You just couldn't let more people to the trading floor because you could not build a bigger house. Yes, you could, but again, the limits hit you quite soon. But nowadays, in the internet, in the databases, in the e-world, there's no capacity, physical capacity anymore. So we could cut out the brokers and we could let people straight come to the trading floor. They can click, they can trade. The user interface in these kind of cases has to be perfect, because if customers don't understand what service you provide or what way to click, they just go away. It's our clerk in the office is the user interface. So borderless world, blockchain to provide the trust, the courage to use the blockchain, and actually it's much easier from coming outside the industry and build something new for the industry than industry itself to take the blockchain and start changing it, because there's so many cemented value chain and the intermediaries in the services that it is difficult to change it. But it's worth to try, and any questions, all the details are here. Please feel free to reach out. Thank you.